Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the next episode of the Jason's Take On. Really exciting to be here today. Today, I'm here with my co-host, Jason Noble, over in the UK. Jason, go ahead and say hello.
Hello.
Very insightful.
nice and simple.
Exactly. We're really excited today to be joined by one of the great leaders of customer success in the industry, Guy Nirpaz, who is the CEO of Totango. And most everyone knows of Totango, and if you don't, you must be new to the industry. It is one of the leading CS platforms that has been around for a very long time. Totango has done some great things in the industry and brought together some summits, has brought together a lot of thought leadership, and has really been leading the charge about moving the field of customer success forward. So we're really excited to have Guy here today, and he's going to share some of his thoughts of forward-looking trends in CS and how the industry is changing and evolving and what we can expect coming forward. So Guy, thank you very much for joining us. We're excited to have you here.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, awesome. And also for those who don't know, Guy also is the published author of a book called Farm Don't Hunt, The Definitive Guide to Customer Success. And we'll include a link to that as well in the show notes. But Guy, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about your background and a little bit about Totango and just let everyone know how you got to be where you are.
Sure, absolutely. I'm the founder and CEO of Totango. We started Totango originally in Israel in 2010, and since later years, we moved to headquarters in the US in Silicon Valley, engineering in Tel Aviv and Ukraine from an acquisition of a company. And we've been really pioneering the space of customer success, enjoying every bit of a moment because it's such a good cause to root for. Both what we're doing, which is enabling companies to adopt customer success at any scale, small, medium, large, and at the same time seeing from the front row how markets are evolving into digital-centered businesses, which leads to customer-centered businesses and a lot of very interesting conversation, technological innovation. So, happy to share with you. We can talk about this for several hours, but I'm sure our time is a bit limited.
Absolutely. Let's jump right in, since you have been here from the very early days of the customer success explosion. What would you say are some of the biggest changes you've noticed over the past 10 years or 12 years since you started Totango? And then let's move on to what is coming down the pike and what's new.
Yeah, so I'd say that the first change is people actually recognize the word, because when we started, what are you guys talking about? Didn't you mean customer support? So I think we're a little bit beyond that. And I think customer success transitioned from a focus of core group of people that recognize that companies need to invest in their customers and drive outcome for their customers, from more of a that's the right thing to do from a conceptual perspective, to a company-wide strategy where customer success is at the core of growth strategy. Customer success goes beyond just the customer success team. It's an approach that company takes to drive revenue growth by making sure that their customers are getting value from their products and services, and for that reason they stay for longer and spend more money with them and recommend them. So I think that's the major change. I'd say one more thing. I think also the conversation has moved from what is it to how to do it best. That's we're moved from this idea of you got to evangelize for it to you got to deliver on the promise of customer success.
I love that. And I think it's moved now from that evangelizing what we're trying to do. There is a broader understanding. There are still some organizations, including customers, that don't understand it. We're all still getting those feedback from your support, your sales. So you've still got that, but there's far less of it. And I think it's now, how do we actually prove the real value of it? And how do we show that to customers? Guy, I'm a big fan of you guys. I've known you guys for years. I've read your book. I'd love what do you see as some of the big challenges for us in this industry as we come into 2022? We've got this greater understanding. The technology landscape is great. There are a lot of providers out there, some really well-established ones like yourself, like Gainsight, like some other ones. But what do you see some of the big challenges for organizations as to how do they demonstrate that value for customer success?
Absolutely. So I think first let's start with macro, right? We're starting like a third year on pandemic, and I think clearly pandemic has accelerated digital adoption, digital transformation, while teams are working from home, while customers are remote. So a lot of the, let's say, early days of customer success with physical meeting, wining, dining, all of these aspects of caring for customers is no longer there. And I doubt if it's ever going to go back into the way it used to be. I think the first is you got to deliver outcomes to customers in a fully remote, fully digitized environment. And whether the service is digitized or the service is physical, but the customer experience is fully digitized, it's still the core of it. So from an implementation perspective, in some sense, it's much harder to implement customer success across the company because of change management, because of getting together, making decisions, and deciding on execution path. But on the other hand, it's even simpler if you adopt fully the concept of technology that drives engagement, right? And so I think we've seen ourselves more so than ever before as a technology that enables companies to implement customer success strategies. And as you implement customer success strategies, it's never a one and done. There's a lot of change that needs to be made first and foremost, again, because the world is changing so fast than ever before. Customer expectations are changing, and also the learning is mount into like new realizations and new insights and that you want to implement faster. So the cadence itself, the clock, is much faster. So we see the role of technology provider of Totango in the market is to enable companies to realize the customer success ambitions. And if you look today at how companies implement customer success, what's standard or what's good versus let's say even 5 years ago, it's significantly better, right? It's like it's a whole new set of experiences that are becoming standard. So I think even now it's even much harder to try to cobble everything together on your own to hit a reasonable standard that your customers will actually appreciate and see that as a value being delivered. So I think the role of customer success technology as an enabler for customer success strategy is becoming more and more important. And I think for companies is basically take advantage of technologies, take advantage of principles, and implement this very quickly. And we can talk about implementation momentarily, but I think from a very high level is ability to change very quickly.
Yeah, that's definitely a huge one. And in my business, doing coaching, consulting for the CS space, we specialize in the change management. That is really the area where we find most of our client struggles. How do we get our internal people to play? How do we change how we engage with our customers and move that forward? It's really a big challenge for them. I like what you were saying earlier about one of the biggest changes going from what is customer success to how do we do it. And I've definitely seen a wide range of expectations with software vendors in terms of what is customer success? What do we actually mean when we say that? What do we actually do in our teams? And I'd love to know from your experience, having worked with so many customer success teams, what are you seeing as the things that differentiate the companies that are doing it well versus those are not doing it well or doing it just okay?
The companies that are not even doing it and just considering doing this right.
For that, yeah.
Well, they're talking about it, playing lip service to it.
Yeah. So I'd say while you were asking this question, what jumped into my mind is, what they say about good design is a design that is invisible, that you don't know that the design exists. I think it's a similar fashion as customer success, right? When a customer is buying or making a decision on product or service, I think their expectation is that they're going to realize the value of their investment as quickly as possible, as efficiently and as effectively as possible, without any friction, right? They don't want to wait for anyone. They don't want to ask anyone. It just needs to work. And they want to, basically the question want to ask their vendor or even the community, how can I make more use of it or get more value of it? So I think a good customer success or good customer journey implementation anticipates the next need. It's proactive. It's very responsive, it's very timely, and it's very self-service in its nature, because that's what we all expect from our consumer experience. Who's your customer success manager for you? That's
right.
So it's like Netflix, Apple. They're thinking about this, but very differently, and it's in the product, in the service.
So I think in the brand, if we think about our companies as brands, or you think about your companies as brand, the customer success is part of the brand, meaning the brand is focused on the value, identifying gaps in value being delivered versus value being purchased, and solving for that. Now, I know that this is like utopia, so let's kind of break it down to one level down, which is, you really need to think about your customer journey, the digital journey, the customer experience or the customer life cycle, onboarding, adoption, risk management, renewal, upsell, escalation, referrals, and be really, really good at any part of the journey by continuously kind of setting it up, for sure, that's important, and then continuously iterating and improving the performance of onboarding, and never be satisfied, and measure always experience, measure performance, right? Let's take onboarding as an example. Set critical goals for onboarding, which median time to onboard a customer. What is a reasonable time frame to get them live if it's project-based onboarding, or what is the median to get them activated if it's digital onboarding? It doesn't really matter. What should be the experience, and what is the definition of done? What should be the right level of adoption as they exit onboarding, or the minimum level of adoption as they exit onboarding, and continuously measure yourselves against that and continuously improve the activities that you're doing that will involve a lot of automation, that will involve a lot of data-driven engagement, not like everyone gets the exact same content at the exact same time just because people are different. But not only for onboarding, doing this for every step of the customer journey. So deconstruct the journey, focus on one block at a time, and then build and optimize a great customer journey. And that's what, I mean, really the operating model of agility is what differentiates the great from the rest of them.
How do you talk about value there and outcomes, but how do we make sure that we understand what value is for our customers, and how do you measure it, and measure it so that it demonstrates success to your customers? Because that quite often is a tricky thing to do, and there are still gaps between the sales process where people are not capturing what they are, but would love your kind of insight as to how you've seen it work best.
So I think there are two let's say two levels of language that you can. One is clearly, why did the customer purchase? What was their initiative? What was it about? What were they trying to do? And then capturing that, and that's super important, right? Capturing the reasons for purchasing, and then making sure that as you go along with the customer journey, you have a cadence, whether it's a QBR or whether it's a different model, to validate, is this still the reason why, is this still the objective of your initiative, and how are we doing against this, and so forth. So that's kind of one dimension, which is very kind of customer centered. The second one, which I've seen a lot of customers do, because you can't have a goal per customer which is unique if you have 1,000 customers or 10,000 customers or 100,000 customers. So there's some, let's say, categorical objectives in the products and services that you're selling, and you can allow for the customer to choose. You came to the Tango in order to reduce churn, or scale customer success operations, or get more referrals. But it's not like you came to the Tango in order to record a podcast, because Totango doesn't record podcasts, it's doing something else. So this idea of scaling the objectives and selecting from a library of objectives and mapping every customer to, or every segment of customer to specific objectives, also allows you to look at metrics in your products and services, or even health, to determine whether or not those objectives are being met along the customer journey. Some products are simple, where, let's say it's a Zoom, which I'm pretty familiar with. Your objective is to run a remote meeting. Okay, that's simple to capture. But if the reason why someone purchases Zoom is to do an entire academy online, then the success of that is a little bit different. It varies. And I think the key is not being afraid of setting up objectives, right? Or setting up customer objectives. I think a lot of people, I think the reason they shy a little bit away from, let's be specific about objectives, because then you can very clearly say, are we meeting them or not? And people hate rejection. So if we're not meeting them, there's no rejection. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Guy, one of the things you've mentioned too is we look forward to the future of CS is the need for CS to be more agile and evolve quickly and be able to compete with. I also believe that as more and more software buyers get used to their vendors offering different levels of CS support and services, that they'll start to look at that, and you need to be competitive on the CS front. When you think of Agile CS, what does that mean to you, and what specific things do you look at there? And I guess related to that is, I know a lot of folks are looking at how do we automate as much of CS as we possibly can, whether it's a low touch approach or other things in there. How do you remain agile when you're trying to really bake in some structured automations as well?
Yes, my background is, before I started Totango, I was like in engineering, right? Engineering and
Mhm.
product. And it was around the time where, when I was there, where the, waterfall has transitioned into agile software development with, iterations and sprints and things along those lines. And in the recent years, we've all heard about DevOps and the need to release to production. Most of our listeners, I'm assuming, have
Mhm.
some sort of a digital and software experience. So releases and release to production and iterations, and thinking about the problem as a life cycle versus thinking about the problem as a one and done experience. And when you think about this, we are all developers now. We use different tools, but we use digital technology to basically code, document, but code in a system what we want to happen, right? When you write a success play in Totango, which is who's doing what when, like a workflow where driven by data, it's basically codifying behavior. Last mile could be a person picking up the phone and calling the customers, or picking up the Zoom and calling the customer. You get my point. So I think the same principle applied, which is you got to incorporate change into your mindset. So it's better to iterate very quickly and think about incremental releases of your program versus one and done, to be able to anticipate change. It's also working much better. It's also this sense of accomplishment when you work on a smaller sprints, things are moving forward. Now, specifically about your question, I think that the way I'm thinking about this is that people in CS and people in the front office are intelligent, and they want to do the work that actually brings their best to the front. So they don't want to do repetitive work. They don't want to provide reminders to others. They want to be able to solve problems, brainstorm with their customers, take things to the next level from a program perspective or from a customer outcome perspective. So everything else,
Yep.
that's technology, right? This is where automation comes in. So if you want another way to look at that, there's self-driving car, but all the modern cars have driver assist. So all the things that you hate to do, look backwards when you pull back. You got a camera that shows you what's around, and you've got sensors that are telling you if you're going to hit something as you're pulling back, and so forth. So we'd like to think about automation as surrounding. So on one hand, programming, right, defining the cadence and who's doing what when, like documenting and codifying the program. That's from a program perspective, and from engagement or CSM lifecycle perspective, is basically surround the CSM with all the technology that allows them to focus on what's really important, which is problem solving, analyzing situations, coming up with creative ideas, collaborating internally, moving the ball, which is not like mundane or repetitive.
I think it's such a great idea, and it's something that I think we're beginning to see more of, but there aren't many people talking about agile customer success. And I think, to your point, it's about change and being responsive to that change. So that's really great ideas there. Guy, I'd love to talk about your book for a second. As I said, I've read it, love it. The Farm Don't Hunt. And I think for all of us in CS, it means it really shows where the focus is. And with this drive now for customer success really to be the growth engine for business, can you just talk to us about what was your motivation to write the book, and how do you see the farming versus hunting debate?
But my motivation was I'd like to be lazy. I think it's the most efficient way to do business.
Nothing wrong with that.
I think after repeating, and we kind of mentioned the period in the market of evangelizing where you had to explain many times why customer success and what do you really mean by saying this and so forth. I thought that the best approach would be to just organize all my ideas in a book. More specifically about the concept is this idea that we all think in metaphors, and if we can introduce a new metaphor into the business, right? The previous metaphor was all funnel, right? Everything is a funnel, and all you care about is putting leads or prospects at the top of the funnel, and then closing them. And that was the metaphor in which companies operated on. And we had to look for a new metaphor, which is the tree that grows, or the grove that grows, that you nurture in order to grow your oranges, and once a year you pick them up, but you still need to nurture them because it's not a one thing. So we were looking for, me and Fernando that helped me write the book, for a very simple metaphor that allows all the other evangelizers of customer success to get into their companies and basically explain the concept of lifetime value, which is, it's not 90 days of sales cycle or 30 days of sales cycle and you're done. It's the next 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years of lifetime value, and what you need to do in order to maximize this lifetime value. And we are all, hopefully all of us are surrounded by trees, and we understand how agriculture works, and we can appreciate that this model is a better way to view the new relationship between companies and customers, especially in cloud, digital, recurring revenue, lifetime value.
I love that. Absolutely love that.
Yeah, I love the metaphor too. So having grown up on a farm, I can definitely relate to how it's all
You
connected.
do?
Yeah, actually, I grew up on a dairy farm, and I wrote my master's around introducing technology into the U.S. dairy industry. And it's just fascinating how technology changes even in industries such as farming. But that's a discussion for another time as well, too.
Yeah, so we've got something in common. I grew up on a farm as well. So I guess we need to look at data correlation between people that grew up on a farm and working in customer success.
I wonder if we're onto something here, though. Yeah, absolutely. I wonder if it does change your mindset, though. This is what we did. We're growing something.
Yeah, absolutely. Guy, one of the things I'm curious about, and I could just listen to you all day, but the way things have changed in the industry, and it's gone from what is customer success to how do we do it better. But I think there's still a lot of folks out there and a lot of organizations, some new and some existing ones, that still haven't quite embraced or don't even know what it is. If you're talking to the CEO of a company who doesn't really get it, doesn't know what it is, how do you articulate what customer success is and really what they should expect as they go down this journey to really embracing a customer success philosophy and operating model?
Yeah, you're making actually 2 points, but let's start with the first one. So I think anyone that looks at a business model for over several years very quickly sees the impact of retention or churn and growth, right? So, the number that covers them both, net revenue retention, which is growth minus churn, is a very impactful metric. And if you put this on a business model, and you just play with the numbers, huge differences between 95% net revenue retention, which means that your customer base is shrink and you got to fill in with new customers, versus 120% net revenue retention, which success is customer base is growing. So you got the growth from your existing customers, which is compound growth because it's over the total customer base. So if, let's say, in 1 year, your customer base is 100 million, so 20%, 120% NRR is $20 million out of that. And then another 120% the next year, it's another $24 million. And if you add new customers that came in, growth becomes like an exponential. So any CEO that looks at that business model gets it. I think what they need, let's say, a little bit more encouragement, is that you can control it. You can make an impact. This is not happening. You can make it happen. And the way to make it happen is to really carefully design customer journey and focus on every part of the journey, because you're losing some customers in onboarding. You're losing some customers of not paying attention on the next 90 days. You're losing some customers that had gone through change and you didn't have the early warning system that detected those risks, and you didn't take the action on time, and so forth. So if you optimize this journey by really putting programs in place, you can be very successful. Now, one of the other, I think, elements that I feel has been slowing down the market was that the perception that customer success, getting started, is super difficult. And I've heard this from many people, especially in young companies, saying, okay, I'm not ready for customer success. It's too complicated. I want to go small. And I agree with them. And this is why we've been on a mission for the last 3 years to really simplify everything about customer success. So we deconstructed customer success into modules. We call them success blocks. We made sure that every success block comes with 90% of the content in it. So it's like plug and play. You download that, you make some customization for your business, and you get going. You don't need to do everything all in once, right? You don't need to do the entire journey at once. You can start at the most critical pain points that you have right now, whether it's onboarding or customer 360 or detecting risk, and then add the rest of them. And I really think that our mission, if we think about enabling customer success for the masses, is basically reducing the friction for companies to adopt. I don't know if you've noticed, but we released like a community edition, which is completely free. Our products, all of them have free trials that allow companies to start. So small company can use Totango for free for several months or several years until they hit the limits. And all of that in the context of the approach that many went to market with customer success was a very academic approach. So books, guilty as charged, books and courses and change management and training and so forth, versus, which is what we're doing right now, is learning by doing. Because I don't think it's complicated. Let's agree, the concept is not super complicated. You make sure that the customers get value, and you're gonna get the outcome. So the complex is not complicated. It is, where do I start? What do I do first? What do I tell my team? It's things along, very kind of basic starting points. I think removing friction is core to extend the adoption of customer success technology into the majority of the market.
This has been such a cool conversation. As we said at the beginning, we could talk for hours. Someone like you with the kind of experience you've got, what you guys are doing at Totango. I think I'd like to give you one last question. What we always do with our podcast, to do what we call a bold challenge question. And the one I want to give to you is, what's the number one thing you'd like to see CS leaders doing differently now in 2020, as we're going through all these changes? We're coming out of the pandemic. We've got the world thinking about agile customer success, but what's the one thing that you think people should be doing?
Aim high as you can. Let's get B2B experience to be as good, if not better than B2C experience, right? Let's aim super, super high. There are no limits. You got the budgets, you got the technology, you got the mind share of the customers, you got mind share of the leadership and the company. Just aim high. Go as high as you can from creating experiences to customers. Prove out that when you do it super well, it works exponentially well. So
I love that. And that you're so right. The experience thing, when we talked earlier on about the B2C experience, and we're all ultimately consumers. How as B2B providers do we meet that? And it's not easy, but that's what expectations are.
Yeah, absolutely. At Totango, we see our mission as enablers for people to, whether it's ideas, examples, enabling technology. Everyone should be able to create, the Uber experience, the DoorDash experience, all of these experiences in their businesses, because there's no reason. It can be done. It has been done. Just believe that you can do it yourself.
Love it.
That's fantastic. Guy, thank you so much. Before we go, we always like to invite our guests to give a shameless plug for your company or your book or any initiatives that you have or any resources you'd like to share you think could help people out. Let our audience know how they can benefit from reaching out to you guys.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I'd like to invite the audience to just try out Totango, go to our website and sign up for a free account. All of the ideas that I've discussed in this podcast, like the breaking down the journey into modules, we call them success blocks, getting started super quickly and getting value to be able to sell to your organization or actually start engaging with your customers, is all there. So I hope that this experience is going to do the actual work. So all you need to do is go to totango.com and sign up for a Totango account.
Love it.
Awesome.
I love it. What an intro as well. Just come and sign up. It's brilliant. It'll be easier.
Exactly. Simple.
Guy, thank you so much.
Thanks for being with us. We really appreciate it.
Such a great conversation. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, guys. It was a pleasure.
Take care.